Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to We Believe Digital Studios in Jackson, Mississippi. 56 degrees and an overcast day. Maybe seeing a few raindrops a little later on in the day. Chris Young with you for this twice weekly news break show, 3 p.m. on Wednesdays and Fridays. And we'll start out on the local level with a story from WJTV. A man died this morning after being shot in Jackson early this morning. Shooting it was at the 2000 block of Belvedere Drive. Detectives said the victim died from his injuries. They did not release any kind of details. Also from JTV, Jackson Water announcing temporary road closures will begin on today for sewer line repairs in two different areas. The contractor will be blocking the road at Vardaman Street between Bailey Avenue and Gordon Street, and also be blocking the road at Mitchell Street between Northwest Street and North Mills Street. So those are both starting up on today. City council meeting yesterday. I spoke to one of the councilmen last night, but the thing is, we got 32 days now before the emergency contract with Richards Disposal for garbage collection expires. Expires at the end of March, and apparently there's two bids for a new contract, but it hasn't been presented to the council yet. Apparently, it's Richards Disposal again, which has been doing a bang-up job for us now for essentially two full years, and another company whose name is escaping me right now, but it's Lee Bush company, a local company. So we'll have to see how that plays out with the scoring and all that. The bids are supposed to be forthcoming soon. The council members talked about this contract yesterday at the council meeting, but no action of any kind was taken. And JTV reports that Kenneth Stokes introduced an ordinance to prohibit awarding a solid waste contract to Richards Disposal. The council took no action during the meeting. They said it cannot vote until Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba administration brings forth the request for proposals. Ashby Foote, Ward 1, said the topic of trash garbage collection has been on the council's agenda 16 times already. JTV reached out to the mayor's office to ask when the new contract would be presented to the council, and they were told it would be presented sooner than later. So we'll see when that is. Who knows, maybe a special meeting gets called for that. Another story out of Jackson, I believe this is WLBT. Hours after Jackson firefighters got a massive fire under control in downtown Jackson, it ended up rekindling this morning according to the general manager of Iron Horse Grill. The fire had broke out at a neighboring vacant building on West Pearl Street that the restaurant uses for parking. Massive fire. We've got another story later on in the broadcast about fires. Big March reminder for everybody locally. Big March on Saturday. March to the Capitol from Smith Robertson Museum. The gathering is at 10 a.m. The assembly begins at 11 a.m. This is Poor People's Campaign once again, and their demands include, fight poverty, not poor people, repealing open carry, to address gun violence, expanding Medicaid, fully funding public education, addressing Mississippi's deadly water crisis. PFAS is the acronym for that. It's an acronym that I would have difficulty pronouncing, but it really ends up being a group of chemicals, hundreds, that kind of fall into this group. And to just give you a couple examples, like Scotch Guard, like you might spray on the furniture or the car seats or something, and Teflon with pans and stuff. So, some of these materials are in those things, but the production of that, there's runoff. It's also related to firefighting foam. And based on a report by Consumer Reports, last August, it's all over Mississippi, tons of it. Not just Mississippi either, lots and lots of places. So, and the big companies are already paying out settlement claims in the billions of dollars. Companies like 3M and DuPont. Other demands by Poor People's Campaign: restore Mississippi ballot initiative process, affordable housing, immigration laws that are fair and just, health care for all, and an end to systemic racism in Mississippi's extremist political agenda. So that's sure to be hopefully a very large turnout on Saturday, coming up on Saturday. Smith Robertson Museum, 10 o'clock, over to the Capitol by about 11. Today's just another day in the state of Mississippi with our legislature in session that no hearings are being held on the TANF scandal, the largest fraud scandal in the state history. Upwards of $97 million stolen, misspent, pilfered, whatever you want to call it, from the funds that come from the federal government to each state in the nation to cover the poorest of the poor. And of course, we know that Mississippi is the poorest state in the country. And for these Republican governors and their appointees to redirect those funds that are intended for the poorest to pay for things like fitness boot camps for the then Lieutenant Governor Reeves, to pay for volleyball stadiums at USM, to send former wrestlers from Mississippi, WWE, to rehab on the West Coast. Just shameful behavior. Got nothing to do with the poorest people. And but they're all staying quiet about it. They don't want to have hearings because they know if they have hearings, something will come out. So this is the Republican majority, and they are malfeasant. They are malfeasant and not performing their oversight duties. Do you think for a minute that all that could have happened with the knowledge of only a handful of people? What would be your guess as to how many of those House members and Senate members at the Mississippi Capitol were somehow either involved in the TANF scandal or had knowledge of what was going on and said nothing? There's always reasons why people refuse to have hearings, just like reasons why they refuse to let journalists, reporters in the room during certain meetings, even though it's against the state law. Another day, no TANF hearings. From the Associated Press, gang violence and sexual assaults are a problem in 3 Mississippi prisons. Shocking, huh? The facilities are short-staffed and inmates are sometimes left unsupervised. Inmates left unsupervised. That's according to the Department of Justice in a report that they issued this morning. The department said the state failed to protect inmate safety, control contraband, or investigate harm and misconduct. These basic safety failures and the poor living conditions inside the facilities promote violence, including sexual assault. The department said gangs operate in the void left by staff and use the violence to control people and traffic contraband. The department investigated Central Mississippi Correctional Facility, South Mississippi Correctional Institution, and Wilkinson County Correctional Facility. The new report says the conditions in these 3 prisons are similar to problems that the department reported just 2 years ago in 2022 at the Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman. Boy, this next, I almost don't want to even say it out loud. But a story, and this comes from Mississippi Today, that 3 of Mississippi's 8 public universities could close under a bill being proposed by one state senator who looks a lot like me, who says funding that many institutions is too costly, with what he calls a downward spiral in enrollment. He quote, do not have enough appropriation right now. Wait, weren't we just hearing about the billions that Mississippi has in the coffers? You know, he said we don't have enough appropriation right now to support 8 universities. And with a cliff or downward spiral in enrollment, it will even be worse, said Republican John Polk, P-O-L-K, the author of Senate Bill 2726. The downward spiral is fueled by a drop in the state's high school graduation rate, which in turn leads to lower enrollment in the state's universities. The enrollment cliff presents challenges not just in Mississippi, but across the country, said John Sewell with the Mississippi Institutions of Higher Learning. Very suspect organization in my book. All of our public universities are focused, he says, on recruiting and retaining the best and brightest students from around the state and beyond. Polk's proposal does not specify which 3 universities would close, but said that the state institutions of higher learning would have to announce which schools would be shuttered by June of next year, so by June of 2025. And those universities would have to close by June of 2028. And then more recently, this morning, he told one of the TV stations, I forget which one, that he thinks there's scant chance that that will pass. But, you know, I've been seeing stuff on Instagram and X about that lists Jackson State, Alcorn State, and Mississippi Valley. So, I mean, think that through for a minute. You're going to close 3 universities. It certainly ain't going to be Ole Miss and Mississippi State now, is it? You see how the people think is just bizarre. And what we need in Mississippi is more education, not less. That is at the core of so much of our problems is education, lack of education, miseducation. It's horrible. It's horrible. So here's the guy coming along saying we need to trim on education. These guys have not fully funded their own education funding formula, just one time since 2009. It's just bizarre. So they don't want to fund the public schools. They want to shut down these universities, but they want to let certain kids, wink, wink, go from public schools to private schools and have the taxpayers pay the bill. The same people that would complain about student loan forgiveness. You can't make this stuff up. On to the ballot initiative. If Mississippians are allowed to vote to enact a new initiative process that allows citizens to bypass the legislature and place issues on the ballot, is likely to be much more restrictive than the process that was deemed invalid in 2021 by the state Supreme Court. This comes also from Mississippi Today. This morning, the Senate Accountability, Efficiency, and Transparency Committee passed a proposal to restore voters' initiative rights. Okay, great. But the committee proposal is significantly more restrictive than the one first enacted in the early 1990s. Not so great. And used the Supreme Court, ruled it unconstitutional. This Senate committee proposal would require double the number of voter signatures to put something on the ballot. Double. And can limit the issues that can voters take up. You can't take up nothing like abortion, that's for sure, under these restrictions. And lo and behold, who is authored this bill here? The same Senator David Parker from up north, the South Haven, the same senator who authored two bills last year and again this year to take over the Jackson water system, a state takeover of the Jackson water system. Not doing it anywhere else in the state, but they want to do it to Jackson. Wink, wink. See how all that works? And we really got to fight back against this. And last year, the bill, which died on the calendar, would still give Jackson a voice if they made a regional water system. This time, it calls for the outright purchase of the Jackson water system by the state of Mississippi. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. On a better note, the state's Republican-led House is expected to vote today, as soon as today, after committee unanimously approved the Mississippi Medicaid expansion. House Bill 1725, authored by the House Speaker Jason White and Medicaid Chairwoman, someone named Missy McGee from Hattiesburg, had bipartisan support in the House, even as the state's Republican governor continues to oppose the policy. Tate Reeves said the morning after his State of the State speech, he posted on Twitter, "Count me amongst those extreme MAGA Republicans who think government should not run healthcare." Gosh, amazing. So look, we're up on a halfway break, so we're going to dip out here for a couple of commercials. We'll be right back with you.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
And welcome back to We Believe Digital Newsbreak. Got about 7 or 8 more stories to share with you, moving out to the national and then the world view. Out of Washington this morning, with less than 3 days to go before a partial government shutdown, so in other words, March 1st, Congress is again buzzing with chatter about short-term funding bill to prevent a lapse. The House returns to session today after a 2-week recess. 2-week recess, and they got 3 days. Amazing. And Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, promised to give members 72 hours before voting on a funding deal, leaving insufficient time to avoid a partial shutdown by the Friday midnight deadline without a stopgap bill. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, said on the Senate floor today he hopes the government funding deal will be inked, quote, very soon. Now, there's a lot more going on with that, but, you might want to, if you want to look more into that, there's so much more, but, how we just go through this all the time, every year, right? Another story out of Washington, you better hold on to your chair for this one. The Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says he's going to step down from the Speaker's position, from the leader's position rather, later this year in November, ending his time as the longest-serving leader in the Senate history. The Kentucky Republican, who has served as GOP leader since 2007, made his announcement today. I listened to it. It was music. It was great. An election to replace him will occur in November, and his successor will take charge in January. So Mitch McConnell stepping down. How about that? Wildfires are spreading across the Texas Panhandle. Bad mojo. These are crazy fires down here, threatening towns, forcing evacuations, cutting off power to thousands of homes and businesses. A fire at Smokehouse Creek, north of Amarillo, has burned through 500,000 acres and is 0% contained. It has quickly become the second largest wildfire in Texas history. The governor, Greg Abbott, has issued a disaster declaration for 60 counties and urged Texans to limit activities that could create sparks and take precautions to keep their loved ones safe. Strong winds, unseasonably high temperatures, and dry grass are fueling the fires. Rain is in the forecast for tomorrow, so let's hope that the forecast is right and they get some rain tomorrow. Some Supreme Court justices today expressed reluctance to strike down a ban on bump stocks, a gun accessory that allows semi-automatic rifles to fire more quickly although the final outcome remains unclear. The prohibition was imposed by the Trump administration after that Las Vegas shooting in 2017, where that guy got up there in those hotel room windows and killed 58 people, injured hundreds of people. His name was Stephen Paddock. He used guns with bump stock equipped firearms to open fire at that country music festival. In 2019, the Supreme Court declined to block the legislation. So they let the legislation go through. The already conservative court has tilted further to the right since then, with conservative justices Amy Coney Barrett, a Trump appointee, replacing liberal Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died in 2020. Conservatives now have a 6-3 majority that has backed gun rights in previous cases. The killers of Jam Master Jay. A jury found 2 men guilty of murder in the killing of hip-hop icon Jam Master Jay in a New York City recording studio in 2002, federal prosecutors report this morning. Carl Jordan Jr. and Ronald Washington were accused of killing Jam Master Jay, born Jason Mizell, who co-founded Run DMC in the early 1980s. It had to do with a drug deal. Jordan and Washington face at least 20 years behind bars and a maximum of life in prison. Prosecutors declined to seek the death penalty. Breon Peace, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, thanked the witnesses who he said showed bravery in testifying. Witnesses. Tough stuff. Okay, out to the global picture and the Israel-Hamas war, which just doesn't seem to end. And this comes from NBC News. what they say, what we know about this so far is Israel and Hamas have poured cold water on the idea that a breakthrough is close to a temporary ceasefire deal for Gaza. However, officials from Qatar who are mediating the negotiations said yesterday they're pushing hard for the deal by the start of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan on March 10th. Hamas said its conditions had not been met. Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu said popular support for Israel in the U.S. will help it fight until total victory. Famine is almost inevitable in Gaza, according to a senior UN aid official. The World Food Program also warned that famine was imminent in the north of the enclave, where violence forced it to halt aid deliveries. Levels of child malnutrition in Gaza is the worst in the world. The U.S. said Israel must do more to get aid into the embattled enclave. The Israeli army said this morning, reiterated this morning its plan to invade Rafah, saying hostages and 4 Hamas battalions remain in the city. The Israel Defense Forces' southernmost city is a key point for the proliferation of arms in the Strip. A plan to evacuate Rafah's 1.4 million sheltered civilians ahead of a proposed offensive has been presented to Israel's war cabinet, but it has not yet been approved. NBC News journalists have signed a letter calling for access to Gaza, along with a cohort of other correspondents from international news organizations. Access to the enclave has been tightly controlled by the Israeli Defense Forces, which supervises any reporting trips. In a letter to the embassies of Israel and Egypt, the countries that control entry to Gaza, the journalist said the need for comprehensive on-the-ground reporting of the conflict is imperative, unquote. Over 29,900 people so far killed in Gaza, Palestinians. 770,300 have been injured and thousands more missing, presumed dead. Israeli military officials said they've lost 242 soldiers since the ground invasion of Gaza began. And on that day, there was said to be 1,200 Israelis killed when Hamas invaded. Pardon me. The last story for today comes out of Ghana. From Accra, Ghana's parliament passed legislation on Wednesday that intensifies a crackdown on the rights of LGBTQ people and those promoting lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer identities in the West African country. How about that? Gay sex was already punishable by up to 3 years in prison. The bill now also imposes a prison sentence of up to 5 years for the willful promotion, sponsorship, or support of LGBTQ plus activities. The bill, one of the harshest of its kind in Africa, still needs presidential assent to come into force. The president, Nana Akufo-Addo, has not confirmed if he will sign the bill into law. So that's it for today for Newsbreak. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to see you back on Friday at 3 p.m. Take good care of yourselves and each other. And don't forget that march. Smith Robertson Museum, 10 o'clock, or the Capitol by, say, 11:30, south side of the Capitol by 11:30 Saturday morning. Going to be a great march. Thanks, and see you Friday.